The debate about the incredibly popular survival game Palworld and if its creatures are copied from the cultural phenomenon that is Pokemon is still all over the internet. But there is actually another game that people don't talk nearly as much about, but which is actually quite interesting in terms of the whole who copied who discussion. Megami Tensei. Now, if you want to get more information on Palworld and the controversies that I was just talking about, I made a whole video about this and I will link it in the description below. But in this video, I want to take a look at Megami Tensei and what made this game so interesting. You might have already guessed it, but this video will contain some spoilers for Megami Tensei. It is a really old game, so you might have heard some tidbits on the narrative here and there, but I will do my best to not talk about anything more than the basic plot and setting, and avoid any later story elements or twists that you might want to enjoy yourself. Also, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment and tell me about your day. Maybe share the video with your grandma or your hairdresser. I'm sure they'll love it and you will help me out a lot. So thank you, and without further ado, let's get into the video. This piece of software here is called the RPG Maker 2000. It's a name that could be straight out of a cheap comic book, but it's actually quite a nice little program. I loved to play around with it when I was younger. There are now a lot of newer versions out. I think you can even find them on Steam, but when I was a kid, this was the version that was all over the place. The RPG Maker 2000. It was basically a 2D game engine, quite similar to Unity or Godot nowadays, but way simpler, and specifically designed to make 2D RPGs. You didn't have to write any code, which was quite nice for lazy kiddies like me. You did everything in menus and dialog boxes, but you could still do quite a lot with it. And I think if you really wanted, you could actually extend the program with some Ruby code, but don't quote me on that. A lot of people made really cool games with that software. I think one of my favorites was called Vampire's Dawn, but there was many more smaller titles as well. Not all of those titles used their own assets though, and there was not really anything like an asset store in these days. So basically most people just used whatever they found on Google or got some packages from a forum website, which were usually just repackaged artwork from some other popular RPG, like Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy. As I found out later, some of the more frequently used images were actually enemies and monsters from Shin Megami Tensei, a game, or better, a series of games that up to this point I have never heard about. The first installment in the Megami Tensei series, often shortened to Megaten, titled Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei, made its debut in 1987 on the Nintendo Famicom. Developed by Atlus and published by Namco, the game acted as a sequel to a very well-received Japanese book series penned by Nishitani Aya. These books followed the narrative of Nakajima Akemi, a schoolboy who devised a demon summoning program, and Shirasagi Yumiko, a schoolgirl embodying the reincarnation of the Japanese goddess Izanami. In the video game adaptation, players take on the role of Akemi as the protagonist, with the ability to recruit Cerberus, a demon rooted in Greek mythology, to assist in turn-based battles. The success of this game and its sequel, Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei 2, encouraged Atlus to chart an more independent creative course for their project, moving away from Nishitani's novels. This divergence led to the birth of the Shin Megami Tensei series. Shin literally just meaning true or new, which premiered on the Super Famicom in 1992. Over time, the series has expanded to encompass numerous mainline games and spin-offs, with the Persona series emerging as a particularly popular offshoot. Now, I'm not gonna go too much into all the offshoots and sub-series of the main Megami Tensei franchise, since there are just too many and they don't really tie into this video. Many people in the West mainly know Megami Tensei from the Persona series, which, as I mentioned before, is probably the most famous spin-off. This happened because at some point Atlus released a game called Shin Megami Tensei If, which was supposed to be an alternative reality, in which the apocalypse, which is one of the main parts of most Shin Megami Tensei games, never really happened. Instead, you were playing at a high school which got somehow connected to the realm where the demons that we all know and love originally come from. Surprisingly for the developers, the high school setting was actually very well received, which prompted them to make another game which specifically deals with high schoolers or young adults and focused more on the problems those people went through, Persona. But those games are still not the ones that most Western people know well. That would maybe only be Persona 3, 4 and 5, but we will just leave it at that. If you want me to make a video about Persona, just give me a heads up in the comment section, otherwise we are going straight back to Megami Tensei. What made the original Megami Tensei stand out among all the JRPGs of the time was not necessarily its technical genius or anything like this. It was a very specific mechanic that Atlus wrote into Megami Tensei and many of the following games, and this is actually what we are here for. In the mainline series, the usual backdrop is an apocalyptic rendition of Tokyo overrun by creatures referred to as demons, which are essentially monsters in the series. But it is essential to note that not all of these demons are necessarily the traditional kind of demon that you would expect. The term serves as a broad category encompassing many mythological creatures, including, for example, angels. The game names and designs those creatures after real-world mythological entities, and each comes with a compendium entry, kind of like the Pokédex in Pokémon, providing insightful information about them. For mythology geeks, these compendium entries stand out as a highlight of the series, offering an opportunity to delve deeper into the lore associated with those mythological figures and the cultures connected to them. The myths also play a crucial role in shaping the narrative of most Megami Tensei games. Players have the choice to align themselves with either humans, demons or angels, and engage in conflicts with groups holding opposing ideologies. In-game decisions not only dictate the player's alignment, but also influence the storyline's outcome. Depending on the player's choices, there are usually multiple endings available. It's not an overstatement to say that these decisions profoundly impact the fate of the game's world, and in some cases the entire universe. The narratives typically explore dark and apocalyptic themes, delving into how human choices can reshape the very essence of the world. While it may not be as popular as, for example, Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest, Shin Megami Tensei has garnered a huge amount of popularity, especially in Japan, and also maintains a dedicated fanbase in the West, achieving both critical acclaim and commercial success. The series is well known for its very distinct artistic direction, challenging gameplay, and memorable music. However, it has sparked controversy due to its dark themes, its mature content, and incorporation of Christian religious imagery, which was the main reason why Shin Megami Tensei has for a long time not been localized for Western audiences. And while this may seem weird at first, I believe that this is actually a big part of the charm and the mystery of these games. They are still true JRPGs, untouched by Western adaptations. In contrast to Pokémon, where you're simply reducing a monster's health and then you use an item, in Megami Tensei you must engage in negotiations with the demons to recruit them. Convincing a demon to join you may require offering some money or an item, and at times the demons will ask you some challenging questions, and only providing the right answer or the preferred answer will secure their allegiance. These demon negotiations serve as puzzles within the game, adding an additional layer to the regular JRPG gameplay. Providing a wrong answer during these negotiations can actually be quite bad for you, as it might result in losing your turn or the demon gaining an opportunity to attack you. This system is the reason why Megami Tensei and its predecessors are such important entries in the list of RPGs. This is how the monster capture genre trope was born. It provided you with a huge catalog of creatures that you could add to your team in various different combinations. It not only provided a certain amount of replay value, since the different demons obviously had a different effect on gameplay, it also introduced the idea of collections, kind of like in trading card games, to RPGs. You could even argue that gachas like Genshin Impact or Arknights are directly tied to this single gameplay mechanic. But what kind of intrigued me most about this system was you had to convince the demons. It was not a matter of, hey, I put you in a spherical container and now you do what I say. You actually had to find common ground with the demon you wanted to capture. And this procedure can even fail. It is not a scripted process like in typical RPGs, where someone definitely joins your party. You actually have to do the work. And all of this in text. There was no voice acting in video games at that time. You had to read all of it, which is quite funny to me because nowadays it seems like people really don't like reading dialogue. But maybe that is because the writing is actually not that good, at least in the filler episodes. Genshin Impact. Having a game that uses the dialogue system that heavily and as such a vital part of their game mechanics is something I don't know from that many other games. Maybe only from Baldur's Gate 3 and Disco Elysium. But I really wish that there would be more games like this, because I actually like the idea a lot. Game devs out there, please. Megami Tensei is undeniably a dark game, and I completely understand that it is not appealing for everyone. However, what draws me to it is the realization that even if games have similar mechanics, they can actually be quite different. While you can single out specific mechanics, like here for example the monster catching, the game encompasses so much more. Quite similar to how Pokemon transcends this mechanic in their games. They've added to it, and the same is true for Palworld. These games are just a fusion of various ideas, systems and artistic components, forming a cohesive whole. Personally, I find it more rewarding to appreciate a game or any form of media or art as a complete entity, instead of focusing on individual aspects. This is it for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click the like button and leave a comment to please the algorithm gods. And if you want to stay up to date with any new videos that I make, subscribe to my channel so you don't miss anything. I try to make a variety of videos on gaming, media, culture, like the ones you probably see on screen right now. Other than that, have a great time and see you in the next video. Bye bye.